So this year in real estate has been extremely difficult, right? You can see on the screen right now that home sales are at their lowest point since 2010. And so when you look at all the adjustments, we're probably going to end up somewhere between 3.8, 3.9 million home sales for the year. And then on top of that, because of the presidential election, we're even down even more. And so the question is, if you're a real estate agent, it's like, okay, well, how much worse can things get now that the election is over? Or what does this mean for the housing market in 2025? So here's what we're going to go through in this video today. I'm going to walk you through what the opportunity is going to look like in 2025. We're going to break down the supply, the demand, home prices. We're going to talk about whether or not the housing market is going to crash in 2025. And then I'm going to give you the answers to your clients' biggest questions that they have. So before we jump into today's video, if you are a real estate agent and you want to shift your business model from being primarily a buyer agent to being a listing agent in 2025, and you want to scale your income to six figures or even a multiple six-figure income, I just launched a free listing agent course where I show you exactly how to do that. I'll put a link to that right in the description. All right. So to understand kind of what's going on with the housing market, we got to first look at supply. Now, when we look at supply, most of you that have been selling real estate in the last 2, 3, 4 years, many of you have gotten licensed since the pandemic, where we had the real estate boom. Since that point, we have been in a massive inventory crisis. And so when you look at inventory as of lately, however, you've seen that number actually start to grow. And that shifts the way that this housing market is reacting. And you've felt that in addition to the higher interest rates, which we'll talk about, in addition to it being a presidential election year that just passed. All of these things are contributing to a housing market that has been, quite frankly, very, very, very challenging this year in 2024. A lot of the agents that I'm coaching right now, we're having conversations about, wow, it just doesn't seem like there's that much opportunity. So when we look at inventory, the number of homes for sale, you can see in this graph, this red line, which represents where we're currently at in November 2024, there's 721,576 active homes for sale on the market. This is 27% more than we had this time last year. And so if you look at that for, when you look at where we're at last year, which is this 2023, this red number, you could see how much lower we were last year. And that posed a lot of different challenges for buyers. However, you can make the argument perhaps that was better for sellers. But nonetheless, you can see inventory is starting to rise as we get into 2025. What will that mean for 2025? What will that mean for buyers? What will that mean for sellers? What will that mean for home prices? We're going to talk about all of that in today's video. The thing to note here is that inventory is still far less than what we saw in 2019, 2017, 2018. You can see the gray line up here, the green line, this light gray line. You can see that inventory is still far less in 2024 than it was in these years. However, remember the pandemic when the home prices shot up by 20, 25% in some markets, and it was like a real estate frenzy. Everybody was, it's kind of like the gold rush. Everybody was rushing to get their real estate license to make quick money. You can see how low inventory was, right? 2020, 2021, 22, even last year of 2023. For context, I love that Housing Market puts this in their report every week. You could see where inventory levels were at when in 2015, when the market was very, very different than what it is now, active listings were at over 1.1 million homes for sale. And then if you were to actually go further back and look at the last time the housing market actually crashed, and housing market for context, we're talking about the prices of homes. The last time that it crashed, inventory was even higher than that, just for context. So now that we understand, okay, here's what the current inventory, this is the supply that we need to look at. Let's look at the opposite of that. Let's look at the demand. And we're going to spend some time here because this is really, really, really important. So one of the things that we know is that there are a lot of people, buyers and sellers. However, sellers were still listing their homes for sale during this point going up into the election. The buyers have been on the sideline. That's what we know. The buyers have been on the sideline. And so based on a recent report from Redfin, 23% of buyers were likely to purchase their first home, said they were waiting to do so until after the election. Now, this is just first-time home buyers. This is not to mention the downsizers, the upsizers, the rest of the market. This was just first-time home buyers. So we know demand has been absolutely demolished based on interest rates going right back up to 7% and the election. It seems like homes are just sitting on the market. They're just not selling at all. So we have to look at what are the leading indicators that we can look at that will help us to forecast the 2025 housing market, to give us some insights as to what's to come. Because if you're a real estate agent, you're trying to think A, to yourself, and then B, how do I actually communicate this to my clients such that I am the market expert, which is why I'm making this video, so that you as a real estate professional can go out there and A, understand for yourself what the market looks like, and then B, be able to articulate that to your clients. All right. The first leading indicator that we look at is mortgage applications, specifically purchase mortgage applications. So if you look at this report from the Mortgage Banker Association, you can see that this blue line right here, this graph right here, represents mortgage applications. And then this orange line represents mortgage interest rates. Now, there's no surprise that these work against each other. They're inverted, right? So as we see mortgage rates in 2020 being at 2.5%, 3% interest, you could see what's happened to purchase applications, right? So lower interest rates, more people buying a house. No surprise, yeah? That's why we saw the market do what it did. That's why all these agents, all of you that were licensed in 2019, 2020, you guys were just, it was almost like you stuck a sign in the front yard and you were getting multiple offers within hours of hitting the market. Well, yeah, because demand was extremely, extremely high because the government was giving away money. Now that interest rates came right back up to about 7%, you can see that mortgage applications have gone way, way, way down. So the question that we have to look at is what's going to happen to mortgage rates that drive this buying activity? What is that going to look like in 2025? Well, let's look at that. So as I'm making this video right now in November 2024, rates are right around 7%. When we look at where mortgage rates are going to go, and I've been talking about this for a very, very long time, you can see the chart. This is based on Fannie Mae, the Mortgage Bankers Association, and Wells Fargo. Okay. They just revised this, and you can look on screen right now and start to see that when we look into next year, we can start to see, okay, it's predicted that rates are going to come way down. Way, way, way down. In the first quarter of 2025, rates are going to be right around 6 to 6.25%. Then in Q2, closer to 6%. And then Q3 of 2025, it's predicted that mortgage interest rates will go beneath 6% and kind of hover there for the remainder of the year. If that happens, that will unlock so much of this pent up demand and supply, quite frankly, because there are a ton of homeowners that want to sell their home, but because of a lack of historical inventory, it's like, where do I go? Well, that's growing, so that will help that. But then it's like, well, listen, dude, I'm at 3.5%, 2%. It doesn't make any sense for me to let go of this house right now, go get somewhere smaller, and then pay twice as much. So from an affordability standpoint, this should really unlock the market. This should help you tremendously. So the next leading indicator is, what does the showing activity look like? So Showing Time does a great report. You can go right on their website and check this out. This is showing activity through November 8th. This was through last week. And 2024 is this bright orange line. And then you could kind of see the weekly average from 2020, 2021, 22, 23. And you can see right now, which is insane. This is why I'm making this video for you. So you're in the know. We have more showing activity right now in November during this presidential election or just passed at 7% interest rates. We have more showing activity than we did over the last 2 years this time. So if you look at the last 2 years, 2023, 2022, we have more showing activity right now. Of course, we don't have as much as we had in 2020 and 2021, where interest rates were half as what they are now. But this is a good leading indicator that people right now are shopping for homes. We can see they're actually looking at properties right now this week. Showing activity is more than it was this time last year. What does that mean? That means that there's this demand that hopefully, now that we're past the presidential election, when these interest rates go down, people pull the trigger and start putting offers on homes. So then let's look at this 2025 opportunity. What does that look like for you as a real estate professional? So here's what we know is that home sales have increased 9 out of the last 11 presidential elections. So if you subtract out what happened in 1980 and 1988, every other time after a presidential election, home sales increased. We expect that same thing to happen in 2025. We're coming off of what I talked about already at the beginning of this video. The lowest home sales since 2010, since the Great Recession. We should see home sales. We're looking at home sales going up to over 5 million home sales again. This is a huge increase. Okay, so we're pacing at this 4.5 million right now. We should see that increase in 2025 to get us back over 5 million transactions once again. Interest rates coming back down, inventory levels coming back up, making it a little bit easier for buyers from affordability standpoint, from there being choices. This is better for you. This is more opportunity for you. We expect this to even increase again in 2026, but I'll make more videos about that. But next year, as hard as things are right now, we expect the opportunity to grow. As a result of that, what do we think home prices are going to do? So here's what we know, is that home prices have also gone up 7 out of the last 8 presidential elections. Outside of the Great Recession of 2008, home prices have gone up every single time after a presidential election. And as a result, we expect the same thing to happen in 2025. So based on all the predictions, this is as of November 5th, last week, we anticipate home prices to go up yet again 2.5%. Now, yes, it's not the crazy 10, 15, 20% jumps that we've seen over the last couple of years coming out of that pandemic when inventory levels were extremely low and money was so cheap. We're not talking about that. But when you look at home prices right now and home prices being at historical highs, we're going to see home prices go up yet again. When there's more buyers that come off the sideline, interest rates go back down, we'll have another nice influx in the real estate market, which will move home prices up yet again. This is a great thing for home ownership. And if interest rates come back down to 6% or even the high fives, that will help affordability and help people purchase more homes. Which brings us into this other big idea that people on social media love to spread fear about, which is the almighty housing crash that people have been talking about for years and 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 years. Have we seen a home price crash? No, we haven't. It's been the exact opposite. Home prices, like I talked about before, are at all-time record highs, and they're going to go up yet again next year. Have transactions fallen off the rails? 100%. That's what's made this market so difficult, is that inventory is higher, buyer demand has fallen off of a cliff, and it's diminished the opportunity in 2024. We already talked about that. So when we look at what is the housing market from a crash perspective look like next year, well, here's the reality. Based on home prices, when we look at where we're at today from a home equity perspective versus home mortgage debt, you can see the discrepancy, yeah? That's a massive discrepancy based on how much people, the value of people's homes versus what they owe, which is the total housing market value of $48 trillion versus where we are at before, which was the exact opposite, where most Americans owed more on their home than what their home was worth. You see, this is why it is virtually impossible to see a home outside of any craziness. It's virtually impossible to see home prices collapse in a market where inventory is where it's at and the demand is where it's at. Demand is still outpacing supply. So in a market where there is more demand than there is supply, home prices will stay steady. That's number one. And then number two, when people have as much home equity as they have in their homes, meaning their homes are worth as much as they are today versus what they owe on their property, people don't just walk away from that. There are so many opportunities to leverage that equity such that foreclosure doesn't have to be an option. So here are the questions that you should be able to answer for your clients that you're probably getting every single day, just like I am, which is A, when will the housing market pick back up? What they mean by that question, when will the market pick back up? They're talking about all these people right now that are either have their houses on the market that aren't getting any showings for all the reasons we talked about, or thinking about re-entering the marketplace. When is it going to pick back up? It should pick back up in 2025. When interest rates start to come back down, we should start to see more buyers come off the sideline, more showings, more offers, more pendings. All of that will help this market get back on track. That's number one. Number two, when will rates come down? You probably get that question every day. When will mortgage rates come back down? Well, now you can tell them, we expect mortgage rates to start to significantly come down in the first quarter of 2025. Once we fully get through this election and the markets have had some time to settle, we anticipate mortgage rates to come back down in 2025, in first quarter. What are home prices going to do? Well, we've answered that. We know that home prices are probably going to stay pretty much flat, but we do anticipate them to go up just a little bit more in 2025. When will there be more homes for sale? Well, we know inventory is already up 23, 24% than we were last year. We actually anticipate that to probably go up just a little bit more in the first quarter, and then stay a little bit more flat, when we get into home buying season, but there should be more opportunities for buyers. There should be plenty of opportunities for sellers. 2025 should be a bounce back year off of what's been a really, really difficult 2023, 2024.